All right. So with that, let's do a little bit of a deeper introduction. My name is Karen. I'm a product marketer for Forge at Atlassian, and Aggie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aggie. I'm one of the PMs in Ecoplat.
Awesome. So we're here to talk to you today about runs on Atlassian. This talk is going to cover two different sides of the launch. Aggie's here to talk you through the technical requirements, how to get the badge, and then I'll cover how to market your runs on Atlassian app to make sure that you're getting the most out of that investment and the most visibility for your app. Okay, so first let's talk about why this is important. Get everything synced up. Atlassian's target cloud customer is becoming a lot more enterprise, and this is something that we've been seeing build for quite some time. It's been our strategy for years that we want to serve the biggest companies in cloud. And so because Atlassian's cloud customer is becoming more enterprise, that means that your cloud customers are becoming more enterprise too. So serving enterprise customers has a lot of advantages. They're very willing to pay for solutions that are useful to them. In fact, we hear some enterprises say that they prefer not to use free apps because they want that guarantee. Some interesting font things happening on this slide. They also tend to be higher value contracts, so larger purchase price. And you get to build a longer term relationship with your customers. So a lot of reasons to serve enterprise customers, but it does come with a lot of challenges. You often heard it said that enterprises don't adapt to their tools. They expect their tools to adapt to them. So they are a more rigid customer. They also tend to have a lower risk tolerance when it comes to things like security and reliability. And you're probably looking at a long, high-touch sales process to even land them as a customer in the first place. So let's talk through the agenda. Interesting. I don't know if you noticed we're having like some technical little weirdnesses. So we're going to be talking about runs on Atlassian as one strategy that you can use to overcome some of those challenges of landing enterprise customers. We're going to start with looking at some interesting data that's across the wider industry, and then we'll drill down and look at what we see happening in the Atlassian Marketplace. Aggie's going to take you through badge requirements and tooling that partners can use to qualify for runs on Atlassian. And then I'll end with the go-to-market motion. So how partners can position themselves, increase awareness around runs on Atlassian. So broader picture first, the challenges of onboarding new SaaS products is not something that's specific to Atlassian. This is a problem everywhere. This data comes from a 2023 survey of enterprise security executives. 58% of them said that they are juggling 100 vendors or more. So we know that, how this shows up for us is when customers are evaluating Atlassian Cloud or an app, they're also doing the same thing with perhaps dozens upon dozens of other vendors as well. And with so many vendors, that adds a lot of complexity. With complexity comes risk. And enterprises are very aware of this. 84% say that managing that risk is a very big priority for them. And mitigating that risk is not easy. So the way that you do that is you reach out to all those vendors, you send them a security questionnaire, you have a conversation about how their app is handling data. It's usually a really manual process. And that can take up a lot of time, both for the customers and for the partner as well. So now that we've looked at the broader landscape, let's talk about how we see this show up in the Atlassian Marketplace. Our customers rely on apps, sometimes a lot of apps. And when they migrate from data center to cloud, they want to take their apps with them. But that process can be really complicated. When they were on data center, as you heard Kartik talk about this morning, apps ran in the customer's environment. But in the cloud, they're often hosted by partners who are operating all over the world. So now they have to understand how each app handles data before they can install it. In the example that you see here, the customer has actually created their own pretty complex checklist. We're only showing you the top, but this thing actually goes on for several pages. They're going down the list, they're evaluating every single app, and their top 2 criteria are storing data inside the Atlassian cloud and data residency for the EU, which is where this customer happens to be based. So the customer is finding a lot of that information on the security and privacy tab, but it's not really an ideal situation. For one thing, the privacy and security tab is self-reported. We hear a lot of customers say that they notice inconsistencies in how that's filled out from app to app. It is also hard to compare that against apps, which is why this customer has created a giant table. So customers want app security to be simple, but we really haven't made it easy for them. In some cases, customers have been told that Forge is going to be a solution, but it is a little bit more complicated than that. Some Forge apps use remote compute and storage, so knowing that an app is on Forge isn't necessarily enough for some customers. Our research shows that it's not necessarily Forge that customers want to know about. It's actually these 3 top things. The first is tightly controlled data egress. They want to be able to completely close off data egress if necessary, and they want data to be stored and processed on Atlassian's infrastructure. The second one, as you saw from that example of the customer evaluation, is data residency. And then the third is really important. It's that Atlassian is checking and verifying that apps meet the badge requirements. And Forge lets us do that because in the manifest, you have to declare egress permissions, and that ensures that apps aren't sending data outside or using external storage. Okay, so some of you might be thinking, what about integrations? It does turn out that customers think about integrations differently. They know that the app has to communicate with external services because that is its purpose. I think backup and restore is another good category where it's necessary for the app to do its function. So this is actually from a conversation that we recently had with a global financial services provider. Their main concern is where the app is sending their data. They do understand that apps like this GitHub integration require a permission that sends data to GitHub. Seems obvious. But they really want to make sure that their data is not sent anywhere else. And similar concerns are raised for, let's say that there's an app that just modifies something in Jira. Customers are unsure why that app needs to access a remote server. So to summarize, not all apps are going to be run on Atlassian, and that is okay. But whenever we can add transparency or reduce the number of points of egress, it is a good thing for our customers. All right, so that takes us to how to qualify, and I'm going to hand it over to Aggie.
Thanks, Karen. As Karen mentioned earlier, there are 3 main criteria that an app has to meet in order to be eligible for runs on Atlassian. First being that the app has to, data must be hosted on Atlassian infrastructure, or processing needs to happen on Atlassian infrastructure. The second, the app has to be data residency compliant. And the third one being that the app, that information it's verified by Atlassian programmatically. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into those criteria. It's important to know for an app to qualify, it must be entirely built on Forge. The code should run securely within Forge runtime, whether on the client side or on the server side, and the app must not provide any means for data egress unless explicitly consented by the customer. And additionally, this data egress can be completely blocked at any time. It is important to know that the use of classic web triggers makes apps ineligible for runs on Atlassian. However, just recently we launched an early access program for no egress web triggers, which serve as a runs on Atlassian friendly alternative to the classic web triggers. And we encourage all partners with apps that currently utilize classic web triggers to evaluate whether the no egress web triggers would be a suitable replacement. From data residency point of view, Some of the storage hosted options that make the app eligible are entity properties, key value store, cache, and SQL, but only when SQL is generally available. You can still use SQL in preview, but since SQL would not be data residency compliant while in preview, apps that are using SQL in preview would not be runs on Atlassian eligible. We have shipped multiple updates to our content delivery network. So all custom UI apps now allow list the host product, the Atlassian Media API URL, the Atlassian Emoji API URL, and the Atlassian hosted avatars by default. This means that you no longer need to declare egress to load media links hosted on the product domain, and Atlassian hosted avatars now load by default. We encourage all developers to review their app manifests and remove any unnecessary egress declarations for internal domains. And if you believe that there are additional internal domains that should not be declared, please come talk to us through the week. You can find us at the product booth. So today there are a total of 135 apps that could qualify for runs on Atlassian by eliminating unnecessary egress. We would love to see as many of these apps as possible to achieve eligibility ahead of the customer launch. Some of you may still wonder how to get the runs on Atlassian badge. Well, partners do not need to apply or opt in order to receive the badge. What you see on the screen is the current thinking of how runs on Atlassian apps would be surfaced. Our goal is to show customers which apps run on Atlassian Cloud with as much simplicity and precision as possible. Most importantly, runs on Atlassian mirrors the language customers use when they ask for these type of apps. It states a fact that runs on Atlassian indicates apps that are Atlassian hosted with no egress unless explicitly allowed by the customer, a simple technical fact that is programmatically verified. And certain customers really want to know that. Runs on Atlassian will exist alongside other signals on the marketplace, which are particularly important for partner-hosted apps. The investments partners have made in Cloud Fortified badging isn't going away. Runs on Atlassian will be positioned in harmony. Cloud Fortified is a broader set of signals that includes organizational behaviors and practices like support, reliability, and bug bounty participation. And the two badges are not mutually exclusive. An app can have one, the other, or both at the same time. There will be a new filter on the marketplace allowing customers to easily identify apps that meet the runs on Atlassian criteria, similar to the existing filters for Cloud Fortified apps and Cloud Security Participant apps. And now developers can run the new Forge eligibility command in the CLI to find out if the app qualifies for runs on Atlassian. This command uses the same logic that will automatically display the badge on the marketplace in the future. And with this simple command, partners know exactly what they need to do to qualify for runs on Atlassian. In addition, there are 3 new CLI commands that are now available for testing in an experimental release, designed to assist app developers in reviewing previous major versions of their apps and comparing different versions. For example, the version list command would list all major versions for a particular app, including additional information about scopes, egress, modules, and storage. The version details command would list detailed information for a particular major version. And version compare would allow app developers to compare 2 previous major versions, one next to the other, and see additional information about scope, egress, remotes, modules, and storage. You may find this command particularly useful for exploring how your app have evolved on their journey to achieving runs on Atlassian eligibility. Now, we started the runs on Atlassian exploration in September last year. At the time, there were 345 apps that meet the eligibility criteria. And 4 weeks after we announced the launch of the new runs on Atlassian eligibility command in the CLI, this number have grown to 411. And just last week, when I checked, we now had 431 apps that meet the eligibility criteria. We're pleased with those results. We're happy to see that partners are taking that on board and looking into ways how to achieve eligibility. If you're wondering what's next, we do acknowledge that the access to logs and analytics are essential for providing quality support for your apps. And to improve this process, we will implement a new diagnostic data control prior to the customer launch of Runs on Atlassian. This feature will enable admins to grant permissions for logs access and sending data to analytics domains. And before installations, admins will have the option to disable this control, ensuring that any data egress, if allowed, occurs only with the explicit consent of the admin. Now I'll hand over back to Karen, who's going to talk about going to market.
Great. So from here on out, we're just talking about marketing. So marketing for Runs on Atlassian is really most effective when Atlassian and our partners do a joint approach. So even just from having the badge, you're going to get some level of increased visibility for your app. But if you really want to get the most out of it, it's a good idea to have some kind of go-to-market strategy around your own launch as well. So both Atlassian and partners have roles in this go-to-market motion for how we position. So Atlassian's role is to highlight the investments that we've made in Forge, things like secure storage, data residency, egress controls that are part of the platform itself. It's also our role to educate customers through our field team, through support, to explain to them the benefits of apps that run on our platform. We also highlight investments in transparency in the marketplace that make it easier for customers to learn about how apps handle data, and that helps them make more informed decisions for app installation. Partners' role is to tell customers about the investments that all of you are making. So things like the decision to build on Forge and the design choices that you've made that protect data and keep it on the platform. Partners are also trusted experts. Customers are going to be looking to you, not just to Atlassian, to help them understand what Runs on Atlassian means. So it's a great opportunity to be that person that thought leader that's educating customers and help them through the process. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be the slide. Cool. So in terms of timeline, we announced Runs on Atlassian to partners in November. As Aggie mentioned, we've already seen a lot of eligibility uptake just in that short amount of time. Since then, we also have released the tooling that Aggie showed you that helps you understand whether or not an app is eligible. And at the same time, we're working on a customer-facing launch for Runs on Atlassian, which will take place in the next several months. So right now, we're sitting in this time period where we're preparing for that launch. Our goal is to get that badge live in time for Team 25 Anaheim. And there are a few different touch points where we want to talk to customers about that. We're preparing our own go-to-market checklist, and that'll include, along with team, things like sales enablement for both our field and our channel teams, and material it's going to help customers learn about the badge. We're also looking for app stories that we can highlight. When Runs on Atlassian launches, we want customers to go to this collection on the marketplace and be wowed by all of the great apps that are there. So if you have an app that qualifies, that has great traction, we want to hear from you to collect customer stories and see how we can place your app in our marketing activities. So next, I'm going to take you through a bundle of resources that are live and available for you to use in the partner portal. These are templates that you can copy, or you can use it as a starting point or an example as you're building out your own marketing plans for Runs on Atlassian apps. So basic elements of go-to-market strategy. Forgive me, some of this is going to be a little marketing 101. For any launch, these are the core things that you want to start thinking through. But in the context of Runs on Atlassian, thinking about your target market, you probably already have some idea of your user segment, the ideal customer profile. So keeping that persona in your mind, why would Runs on Atlassian matter to them? Second, you want to think about alternatives to your app. Does Runs on Atlassian add any value that differentiates you from those alternatives? And finally, messaging. So messaging is bringing your insights from competitive research and your target market knowledge, and you're bringing those together to clearly describe the benefit that you're providing. And then finally, the bill of materials is all of the things that you're going to produce to activate that message. In the Partner Portal Kit, you will find a document called a message house. This is a framework that we use very heavily inside Atlassian. Message houses create a standardized single source of truth for product messaging. When we have launches where we have copywriters, documentation people, anyone who's creating content about a feature, it allows them to all talk about it consistently. The message house in the Partner Portal is pre-filled with language that you can use to describe Runs on Atlassian in your own marketing materials. I do want to talk a little bit about, one note of caution. It's always important to be sure that your marketing isn't misleading, of course, but especially when it comes to app security. As Aggie mentioned, there are some exceptions that customers can make that allow egress under certain conditions. Because of this, we can't make absolute statements like Runs on Atlassian apps never egress. We also can't suggest that Runs on Atlassian apps are totally risk-free. So here's an example of two examples of what that could look like. On one side, we have marketing copy that goes a little bit too far to the point of being a little misleading. So that can break customer trust. It's really important that we show the value, which is the example on the right side. We're showing the value, but being very precise in our language. So let's talk about how to decide what to include in your bill of materials. Before you can do that, you need to decide how big of a priority the launch is to you. And that is going to be different from partner to partner. Let's say maybe your app has a use case that has to do with storing very sensitive data, or your target customer is enterprise. That could rank a higher priority for you and your company. Or maybe you have a lot of other major releases that are happening and you decide you want to scale back on doing a big ROA launch. Both are totally valid approaches. So I think for a lot of partners, the tiering is going to fall either in tier 2 or tier 3. The lower the tier number, the higher the level of visibility that you're putting into it. So tier 2 might mean creating a landing page, doing a webinar, speaking at an ACE event. Tier 3 is a little bit quieter. Maybe you're just doing a blog post or a community post. And yeah, tier 4 would be for smallest changes. Okay. Once you have a release tier, you can create a plan. And that's the next resource that you'll find in the partner portal. The plan page brings together all those elements that we talked about, your messaging, your target audience, what you plan to deliver to activate that message. The template that I shared in the partner portal is one I like to use for kind of medium complexity launches, and you can use it to just fill in your own marketing plan. The channels that you list there will depend on what is available to you, what's most effective. So for example, LinkedIn is a really accessible and great way to reach customers. You might have owned media like a newsletter or your own blog. I also know a lot of partners are, building their own audiences with podcasts and videos and things like that. So those are all things that you can tap into. One channel that we are at Atlassian, I like to nerd out on these things. We are starting to lean away from like direct email. I know this is also a complicated topic. for partners in terms of like accessing those email lists. But across the Atlassian marketing org, we're just in general sending way less email. It is a noisy channel. There's a lot of regulation, red tape about consent and user privacy. So if email is part of your plan, I would recommend looking at the emails that you're already sending and incorporating messages into newsletters or other business as usual campaigns. Okay. But one thing that really does deserve its own call out is content marketing. SEO is your friend. When customers are going to be Googling runs on Atlassian, right now, when you do a Google search, there's not much content out there. It's really just the 1 or 2 blog posts and the documentation that we've published so far. So our idea of success is that our customers are Googling questions like, what does runs on Atlassian mean? And really great authoritative partner-written articles are coming up at the top of that search. So to recap, 3 things that you can go out and do right away. One is take a look at the manifest for your Forge apps, see if there are any domains that are on the list that Aggie shared, opportunities to remove that egress, and just easy win, qualify for runs on Atlassian. Second is go to the link and check out the toolkit in the partner portal. And last, share your feedback. We'll take a couple of questions. We'll also be around if you want to talk to us. So.